Then came the moment everything began to change: the arrival of a new student named Daniel. He was transferred from another university, quiet and observant, and unlike most boys, he didn't chase after Amanda. That alone caught her attention. She tried to flirt, but Daniel kept his distance. One day, she asked him directly, "Why are you avoiding me?" And he said calmly, "Because I know who you really are." Those words unsettled her. She laughed it off, but something in Daniel's eyes made her uneasy. He was different, not judgmental, but firm. He saw through her act. They ended up in the same group for a class project, and Daniel's gentle nature slowly broke through her defenses. He didn't flirt or condemn her. He just listened. One evening, as they worked together, she asked him, "Do you ever sin?" He smiled and said, "Everyone does, but not everyone hides behind holiness." That night, for the first time in years, Amanda couldn't sleep. His words echoed in her mind. But the guilt didn't last long. She went back to her old habits, even harder this time, as if trying to silence her conscience. Her relationship with Daniel ended before it began. But Daniel remembered her double life, her arrogance, her pain behind the makeup. He didn't confront her again, but he watched quietly. It was a bright Sunday morning when Daniel walked into the church for the first time. He had moved to town for work and was looking for a new place of worship. When he entered, the choir was singing, and the sound of Amanda's voice filled the hall. He froze for a moment, recognizing that voice immediately. He looked up, and there she was, dressed in white, eyes closed, hands lifted as if in holy surrender. The same Amanda he had known in school, the one who ruled the nightclubs, bullied innocent girls, and traded her body for favors, now stood in front of a full congregation, singing about purity and righteousness. Daniel sat quietly at the back, watching in silence as people lifted their hands in worship. When the song ended, Pastor Williams proudly introduced his daughter, saying, "That was my jewel, Amanda. God has truly blessed me with her." The crowd clapped with admiration. Amanda smiled gracefully and took her seat, not recognizing the man sitting quietly among them. Over the next few weeks, Daniel became a regular member of the church. He attended Bible study, volunteered during youth programs, and quickly became known as a humble, committed young man. Everyone liked him. Pastor Williams often said, "We need more young people like Daniel, focused, disciplined, and dedicated to God." Amanda eventually noticed him. One Sunday, after service, she walked up to him with that same charming smile she used back in school. "Brother Daniel, you're new here, right?" she said softly. Daniel looked at her calmly and nodded. "Yes, I am. Good to see you again, Amanda." The moment he said her name, her smile froze. For a second, confusion crossed her face. Then recognition hit her like cold water. "Wait, Daniel? From Unilag?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He smiled faintly. "Yes, it's been a while." Amanda tried to hide her shock, forcing a laugh. Wow, what a small world. But inside, panic had already begun to rise. Of all people, why him? Why here? From that day, Amanda couldn't relax. Every time she saw Daniel in church, she felt uneasy. She tried to act normal, smiling, singing louder, even pretending to be friendlier than usual. But Daniel's calm eyes followed her quietly. He never confronted her directly. He just watched, and that silence was worse than words. Weeks passed, and Daniel grew closer to the pastor and his wife. They saw him as a gift to the church, a disciplined young man with a heart for service. Pastor Williams even began mentoring him. Amanda's discomfort grew daily. She tried to talk to Daniel privately one evening after midweek service. "Listen," she said sharply, pulling him aside. "I don't know what you think you know about me, but whatever happened in school stays there. You hear me?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment and said quietly, "It's not about what I know, Amanda. It's about who you pretend to be." His calm tone pierced her more deeply than any insult could. She turned and walked away, shaking, furious, but also afraid. Daniel didn't rush. He didn't gossip or spread rumors. Instead, he waited. One Sunday, the pastor announced that they would be having a youth testimony service, an opportunity for young people to share their experiences and inspire others. Daniel was among those chosen to speak because of his growing reputation as a dedicated brother. When his name was called, he walked up to the pulpit slowly, Bible in hand, and looked out over the crowd. The church fell silent. "Good morning, everyone," he began softly. "I want to thank God for saving me and teaching me not to judge by what I see." The congregation nodded approvingly. He continued, "You see, sometimes the people we admire the most, the ones we lift as examples, are fighting battles we don't know about. Sometimes, the ones we call holy are just pretending. And sometimes, the ones we condemn may actually be trying to change." Pastor Williams smiled from his seat, thinking Daniel was just speaking generally. Amanda sat frozen in the choir stand, her heartbeat pounding. Daniel's voice was calm, but carried weight. "Back in university," he went on, "I met a young woman. Everyone thought she was holy, a pastor's daughter, always quoting scripture, always smiling. But behind that perfect image, she was living a different life. She was smoking, drinking, clubbing, sleeping with lecturers for grades, even leading other girls astray. I didn't judge her because I understood that sometimes we wear masks to survive. But what broke my heart was how easily people believed her lie. How quickly they lifted her as an example of righteousness while she was destroying others in secret." A quiet murmur spread through the church. People shifted in their seats, whispering. Pastor Williams frowned slightly, uncertain where Daniel was going with his story. Amanda's throat went dry. She looked at him from the choir stand, silently pleading with her eyes, but Daniel didn't look her way. He continued, "I learned that day that we must end. Never, ever judge people by how they look, by how softly they speak, or by how often they come to church. Only God knows the heart." He paused for a moment and looked around the hall. "That girl I'm talking about," he said slowly, "is here today." The room went silent. The air grew heavy. Pastor Williams blinked in confusion. The congregation turned, scanning faces. Amanda's hands trembled where she sat. Daniel looked straight at her now, not with anger, but with a calm sadness. "Yes," he said quietly, "she's here. And I'm not saying this to destroy her, but to remind all of us that we must stop pretending. Because when the truth finally comes out, and it always does, the shame will be greater than the sin itself." Gasps filled the room. People turned toward the choir, whispering her name under their breath. "Is it not Amanda? No, it can't be. Pastor's daughter? A god." Pastor Williams looked at his daughter, confusion and disbelief written all over his face. "Amanda," he called softly. Amanda couldn't move. Her eyes filled with tears. The church that once adored her now stared in shock. Mrs. Williams covered her mouth with trembling hands. Daniel walked to where Amanda sat and said quietly, "You don't have to keep hiding. The truth will set you free." Then he walked back to his seat, leaving a stunned silence behind him. Amanda broke down completely. She fell to her knees, crying uncontrollably. The mask she had worn for years shattered in front of everyone. All the lies, all the pretending, it all came crashing down. She tried to speak, but only sobs came out. The church was silent except for her weeping. Her father slowly stood, his face pale, his heart broken. He wanted to be angry, but all he felt was sorrow. The girl he had preached about, his pride, his example, had been living a lie. When the service ended, no one spoke to Amanda. Some looked at her with pity, others with judgment. But Daniel's words lingered in their minds. It exposed